Just getting some more practice with what we were working with yesterday. So to start with, if both the equations are y equals, so if they're both y equals, we set them equal to each other. So both y equals, set them equal to each other. So in this case, I take my 4x minus 7, make it equal to negative 2x plus 17. When they're both y equals, set them equal to each other. There's no parentheses, anything like that with our substitution. Then we're solving. Nothing to distribute, no like terms to combine, so we start with moving the variable. I got a minus 2x. That's the lower one, so I'm going to move it by doing opposite, and we do it to both sides. Cancels out there. Give me 6x minus 7 on the left equals 17. Now I solve by doing the opposite with my addition or subtraction. I got subtraction here. Opposite of that is adding. So I get 6x, because that canceled out, equals 24. Last step, we got to divide by our coefficient. So 24 divided by 6 gives me an x value of 4. Any questions on how to get the x there? When they're both y equals, set them equal to each other, we solve for x. To get the y value then, we pick one of the two equations, and we got to put our x value in for x. I'm using that first one because the second one's got a negative number. And the first one looks easier to work with, right? So when we do that, that gives me 4 times 4, because x was 4, minus 7. So 4 times 4 is 16. 16 minus 7. 16 minus 7 is 9, so my y value is 9. So I got x value, I got a y value. If we had ordered pair, whoops, I don't know. We have 4, 9 as our ordered pair. Any questions on that? So that's when they're both y equals. We set them equal to each other. Y'all try this one. Both of them are y equals. Set them equal to each other. Solve for x. Then plug it in, get your y value. Give me an x value, just the x to start with. Nick? 5's correct. So x equals 5. Connor, what was your y value? 39's correct. So both of them are y equals. We set them equal to each other. Y'all do not have to do this. This is just the way I do it. I prefer it. I take the one with the bigger coefficient and put it on the left. If you do that to start with, like take whichever equation has the higher coefficient, it keeps the x's and the variables on the left side, and some of y'all just kind of work better that way. But we solve, we move the variable. 7x is the lower variable, so I subtract 7x from each side, cancels there. We got 2x minus 6 equals 4. Do the opposite with our subtraction, so we add 6. I got 2x equals 10. I divide by the coefficient, 10 divided by 2, I get 5. If what? If the x's were ever the same, that's when you have no solution or infinite solutions. Okay, because that means they'll have the same slope, so it just kind of depends on what the other numbers are. If the other numbers are different, but the x's are the same, that means you have no solution. If everything's the same, that's infinite solutions. So what's x equals 5? We plug it into one of those equations. Y'all, it doesn't really matter which one. They all got positives. 7's smaller than 9, so I'll use that one. We got 7 times 5 plus 4. 7 times 5 is 35. 35 plus 4 gives us that 39. Just to show you, though, if we use the other one, 9 times 5 minus 6. 9 times 5 is 45. 45 minus 6, 39. If your x value is correct and you do the math correctly with both of those, it should work out the same way. Any questions on those? All right, so that's what you do when they're both y equals. They're not always going to be both y equals, though, as we saw yesterday. Sometimes we get these, right? In the case of ones like these, where one of them's y equals and one of them isn't, this is where we're doing the substitution with the parentheses. So my y value is going to come out, and this is going to go in my y value's place. So I'll have 5x minus 4, the coefficient has to stay, and then we put some parentheses on that equation that we're putting in, and it equals negative 3. All right, everybody good with that step? Take the y out, put the other equation in its place. Got to have those parentheses because we're going to have to distribute, okay? So when we distribute, what number am I distributing? Negative 4. The sign in front is important, okay? So if we got a minus in front of that number, we got to make sure we're distributing that minus as well, okay? So I've got 4 times 3, that's 12. It's a minus times a minus, a negative times a negative, so that makes it a plus 12x, okay? Then I got 4 times 5, that's 20, but it's a minus times a plus, so that's a minus 20, and that equals negative 3. Okay? Everybody good with that? Everybody clear on that? That sign in front of the number has to get distributed with it, okay? So we combine like terms. I got 17x minus 20 equals negative 3. I get rid of my addition or subtraction. I got subtraction here. Opposite, we add to both sides. So I got 17x equals, when the signs are different, what do I do? Subtract, so 20 minus 3 is 17. We use sign of the bigger number, that's a positive 17. Okay? Now I divide. What's 17 divided by 17? 1. So x equals 1. When you have equations like this, definitely use the one that's y equals to find your y value. We do have to use a negative in this case, but we're multiplying by 1, so it's not that big a deal. So we got negative 3 times 1 plus 5. What's negative 3 times 1? Negative 3. So I got negative 3 plus 5. What are we doing? Signs are different. Subtract. And we use the side of the bigger number. So 5 minus 3 is 2. 5 was bigger, so it's positive 2. So I got x equals 1, y equals 2. Any questions on any of that? Yeah. How did I get the 17x or the 17 by itself? Both. The 17x came from, once I distributed, I had 5x plus 12x. So when I combine like terms, I don't do the opposite because they're on the same side of the equal sign. I do just like it says, 5 plus 12, 17. The 17 by itself, when I moved that 20 to the other side, I was adding 20. Negative 3 plus 20, signs are different. You subtract, sign the bigger number, so we get 17. Okay? Any other questions on that one? All right, think y'all can do one of those? Give that a try. All right, Corey, what'd you get for x? -4 is correct for the x. Who's got the y? No? So the x was -4. Need the y. Yeah, +5. All right, so both of these aren't y equals. Since they're not both y equals, we do our substitution with some parentheses. This is going into here. I switch the order on the equations. Usually it's the top one going into the bottom one, right? It doesn't matter. It's whichever one's y equals is the one that you're going to put into the other one. All right, so then we do that. We got 4x plus 7. We got our x plus 9 in parentheses equals 19. We distribute. When we distribute, what type of math are we doing? Multiplication. You multiply when you distribute. Some of y'all were adding. So we got 4x. We got 7 times 1x, so that's 7x. 7 times 9, that's 63, equals our 19. Okay? We combine like terms. 4x plus 7x is 11x. We got plus 63 equals 19. I got to move the 63, so I subtract 63 from each side. So the 63's cancel out. I got 11x. When I subtract, if your bottom number is bigger, you got to flip that over when you do your subtraction. Or you look at, signs are different. We subtract them. Use the sign of the bigger number. So 63 minus 19 is 44. The minus 63 is the bigger number, so that's a -44. And I ran out of space a little bit, but when we divide, we get x equals -4. For the y value, we want to use that equation. So -4 in for x plus 9. Signs are different. We subtract, use the sign of the bigger number. That's a +5. Any questions on that? All right, so this one, I'm going to show you just a little bit different. What's different about this one? It's not a y equals, it's an x equals. Everybody see that? All right, so you know what that means? If I got x equals, this is going to go in here. We're going to substitute for x, okay? So 3 times -2y plus 4 minus 2y equals 20. Everybody with me on that? So if it's x equals, I substitute for x. If it's y equals, I substitute for y. All right? Then we solve it just like we would normally. I distribute, so that's -6y plus 12 minus 2y equals 20. Signs are the same, so I'm going to add those together. I got a -6 and a -2, so that makes a -8y plus 12 equals 20. I subtract, so I got -8y equals 8. What's 8 divided by -8? -1. So y equals -1. I'm going to use the first equation. I got -2 times -1 plus 4. What's -2 times -1? +2. Negative times negative is a positive. 2 plus 4 then, we got x equals 6. On the problems like this where you have to be careful, sometimes they put the answer choice as an ordered pair. just remember x goes first and then y. So if this were an ordered pair, it'd be 6, -1, okay? That's not any different though, is it? It's just we got to substitute for a different letter, okay? So just kind of be aware that is a possibility sometimes.